All right, so we are back with another Collier and Associates podcast. We're going to do stuff a little different this year. We're going to have more agents on and really just get to talk to them about what you guys' business is like, where the market's at, really give people who are listening exact insights into the real estate market, because ultimately we're real estate brokerage. So that's what it's all about. Stu will still guest star occasionally, I'm sure of it. So everyone who watches for the Stu entertainment will still get that. But we're here with Abby Hill. How long have you been an agent?
4 years.
4 years. Wow. You are doing very well for 4 years in.
Thank you.
So if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, how long you've been in the area, kind of stuff like that, just little info into Abby Hill.
Yeah. I have been an agent for 4 years, but prior to that, I moved from Central Arkansas to go to college up here at the University of Arkansas. Didn't think I'd stay, but loved it. Worked corporate for a little while and then jumped into real estate.
Oh, there we go. What made you want to get into real estate from the corporate world?
My grandmother was a real estate agent. So whenever I would go to Batesville with her, I would constantly be at showings or closings or at her office flipping through the binder of listings, and never really thought that that's what I would do. And she put a bug in my ear with me I loved sales, but I didn't like that I had no real connections to the people that I was helping in the corporate world. Never saw them face to face. It was always over Zoom. And she put that bug in my ear, did the classes. She said, if you like it, go for it. If not,
That's awesome.
no big deal. So I ended up falling in love with it, and here I am.
There we go. And so your business has you work a lot in new construction,
Yep.
as well as with first-time home buyers, correct?
Yeah.
And so you're doing kind of a variety of things. What have you found to be kind of your favorite niche of real estate?
I wish that I could say I have a favorite, but I got this advice from my grandma when I first got into real estate. And she said, you're going to come across all sorts of people in real estate, and every single one of them deserves to be treated exactly the same. No matter if they're buying $1 million home or a $200,000 home, you have to treat them all the same. And I think that first-time home buyers are exciting for me because I'm still young. A lot of my friends are first-time home buying. There are a lot of young people in the area that are trying to get their start and quit renting. And so it's a nice, and it's fulfilling for me.
Absolutely.
My job every day.
Yeah. Have you seen the age? Because if I had to guess, a lot of my friends are still not in their first home at 24, 25 years old. Is that age of first-time home buying kind of going up right now?
Yeah, from what I can tell. I had a few friends, people I know, during COVID, those rates going down helped a lot. Mm-hmm. So they were really a few of them were able to, jump on that. But I'm 28 and I don't have many friends that own homes.
Yeah.
They're still working toward it.
I know it's kind of changed dynamic. I mean, I remember my parents growing up said they didn't have much, but they were still able to get into a home for like $60,000, $75,000. And it wasn't anything crazy, but you couldn't get on a piece of land for $60,000 or $75,000 now. So it's crazy how Northwest Arkansas has changed. The landscape here has changed. So we kind of wanted to make this podcast oriented towards first-time home buyers. There's a lot of them out there, a lot of people trying to figure out, can we afford this? Will we even get approved? So I kind of want to ask you some questions that are along the lines of some questions people might be asking for first-time home buyers. And so the first one is, what do you think, because there's a lot of challenges that first-time home buyers look at. What do you think is the biggest one that they are facing when they start the journey of looking for a home?
I think it's just doing something that you've never done before. People get intimidated it's like buying your first car.
Yeah.
Only when you go to buy your first house, you can have an agent there to help you. So yeah, it's just doing something new. You don't understand the financing. You don't really understand home insurance. You don't understand what you have to have paperwork wise or don't. And so it's a very scary thing. But if you have the right agent, I tell all of my clients, ask every question you can think of, because real estate is kind of alphabet soup. Like we have SPD and now IRSA, and there are a lot of acronyms for things. Yeah. And it's confusing. So if I ever say anything to my clients that they don't understand, I know it's their first time, so I've got to explain it.
So that kind of, there's no dumb questions. Yeah. Well, honestly, as someone who got involved here at the Collier & Associates brokerage, ran a real estate media company, my dad's a realtor, and when I went to buy my first home, I was so confused. And it was almost more overwhelming because I was like, I shouldn't be confused. I've seen these transactions, but there's so much lingo that I had no clue what it meant. I had no clue what a gap appraisal was. And I had no clue any of these things. And honestly, if I wouldn't have had representation, I probably would have gotten taken advantage of pretty hard.
Yeah. And you shouldn't know. That's what I tell a lot of my clients is, you might be scared to ask the question, but there's no reason for you to know. You've never done this before. Ask, and the more educated that they feel along the process, the more at ease the transaction becomes, because they feel very involved. They feel like they can ask their agent questions. But yeah, they're not supposed to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's another question kind of that I was just thinking of. I have a buddy going through this right now. He's trying to navigate where to start, what to begin with. And so a lot of my generation obviously has access to Zillow, realtor.com, a lot of these things out there to go look for homes on their own. At what point do you engage a realtor when you're trying to buy a first time home? Because obviously there's a little bit of this, let's see what's out there right now, maybe before we even take that next step. What point do you get pre-approved, then reach out to a realtor? Should you reach out to a realtor ASAP? What would you recommend?
I think that reaching out to a realtor first in my situation and how I work with my clients is best, because I do have lenders that I work with that I can kind of, luckily enough, fit personalities, fit loan types. I know lenders that will help with certain criteria of person. So if you do reach out to a realtor, they can sometimes give you an advice on, which route do I go for, which lender should I reach out to? So I think that's, you can go either route, but the relationship with your realtor is very close knit. You're going into these homes, you're talking to them almost every single day. So having at least some advice on a lender, I think, is good. Because you also want your lender and your realtor to get along and to communicate well. And so that helps.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think it doesn't hurt anything, right, to go ahead and talk to an agent. I mean, It's not like you're signing away your money or you're making a house for sure yours. You're just
interview them.
Yeah.
Get in front of 3 or 4 agents. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, because you are going to have to talk to this person every day and be comfortable with sharing things and situations and be okay with asking them questions. So interview 3 or 4 of us and see which one's the best fit.
No, I think that's a great call. It's kind of like in business, people interview lawyers. They figure out which lawyer they want to work with, CPAs. I feel like you guys fall into that kind of area of service where you really want to get along with your agent. You want to feel like you can ask them any question. You want to feel like you could call them whenever. So I definitely think that's good. My next question for you is, how would you guide a client that's maybe a little nervous about the finances? They're, let's say like me, you're a 1099, you're a contractor. It doesn't show up as well on taxes. What would you say to someone kind of freaking out about, hey, I don't even know if I can get qualified?
Yeah. For me in that situation with several of my clients, I will go with them to their very first appointment with a lender. I think I'm old school, I think, a little bit, and sitting down face to face with a lender, whether we have to go sit down with 2 or 3, 4 or 5, that eases a lot of questions. And then the buyer also feels like you're in the same boat, going toward the same goal with them. They feel like you're along for the ride too.
Absolutely.
Sometimes people will come and already be pre-approved and set and ready to go. But, if a buyer is really, really hesitant and scared, the more involved that I can be in every step of the process, the more that they sleep better at night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of it goes back to just wanting to be affirmed in your decision you're making. I know my buddy I'm talking about, he's just confused on, does he need to get financed or does he need to get pre-approved before even falling in love with a home? And so I straight up told him, hey, I would call an agent because there is so many factors that go into these things.
Yeah.
It's about 10 different ways to close a house. And so I've seen people get very creative in how they negotiate transactions. So I think a realtor is very, very valuable.
And falling in love with a home on Zillow. Like, I think you can get some inspiration and get an idea of what the market looks like, what a $400,000 house may look like in the area. But until you actually sit down with a lender and talk to your real estate agent about what the market looks like and what the possibilities are, just don't set yourself up for too high of expectations or too low of expectations until you have those real conversations. Because Zillow can have a lot of really beautiful houses that you want to fall in love with, but until you figure out your payments and what you're comfortable with, you know, it's a big decision. So you want to be fully informed.
I completely agree. And not every house, believe it or not, looks like how it looks on Zillow. As a real estate photographer, I do know that very well. Yeah. The buddy I'm talking about went to an open house for this house that they had fallen in love with. And there just happened to be an open house, and he gets there and he texts me and says, yeah, it's way overpriced. And he didn't think it was going into it. But when you don't see these really nice cleaned up photos, can change the price a little. The Zillow estimate doesn't really mean much of anything, especially at the negotiation table. And so I think that's really good. What would you say, this kind of goes into that, I think, and you're kind of hitting on it. What would you say is the biggest mistake you see first-time homebuyers kind of consistently make?
Consistently, it's going into the market, not having an expectation before you meet with your realtor or your lender and thinking that that's the way it's going to go and it's going to be easy. Real estate is a negotiations game. So depending on the market and if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, your reality can be very different in what to expect.
Absolutely.
So that $400,000 home that you're in love with may actually sell for $450,000 if we have 12 showings on it and a lot of interest. So you want to my biggest advice is just know the market, talk to your agent, talk to your lender, and then you're set up for success knowing what you're getting yourself into. Yeah,
I think that's good. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I know going into it, I had expected me and my wife to spend a very specific amount. What I didn't factor in was we wanted to live in Cave Springs. So obviously you pay a higher price tag. You can't look at homes in Fayetteville for 2,000 square feet and match that to homes in Cave Springs. So I think agents have a very good idea of hyperlocation pricing, like very specific location, what things cost in this area, in this neighborhood, because the bike trail runs behind it. All that's very important.
Yeah.
Okay, so lastly from you, I was just going to ask, what should first-time home buyers start on, you think? So they reach out to an agent first. Mm-hmm. What do you think's the first step for them after that?
Lender.
Okay, that's what I figured.
It's got to be. You've got to get with a lender, unless you're paying cash, and then let's rock and roll. But if you're going to finance for your house, you've got to be well informed of what possibilities you have.
Well, and I think that right there, that honest answer, even after an agent, shows how important it is to have an agent, because a lender, you can go Google lender and who knows what you're going to get. You might just get a run-of-the-mill Bank of America home loan, and it's like, that probably is not the best option in this area. So I think that's super good because, like you said, you guys can work with lenders. You all know plenty of lenders. You have lenders that fit specific personalities, like you were saying, and I think that's fantastic. Well, I was going to wrap up with, what would you say you feel like the market in Northwest Arkansas, super local, what would you say we're at right now? If you were saying, like, are we in a buyer's market kind of? Are we in more of a seller's market? Are we kind of going sideways? What would you say?
We're in a seller's market still. For January, it is way busier than it has ever been before in my 4 years in real estate. And I've talked to a lot of agents in the last week. It's never this busy. I've gotten so many phone calls in the last few weeks that typically don't come till that February 15th mark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's telling me that there are a lot of people that are out and ready to start buying homes earlier. So that competition is going to probably ramp up sooner where, before it may be April, May, before things get really crazy. I think we could see March.
Yeah. And is it your opinion to not necessarily wait out interest rates? Because won't that just drive up even more competition in this area?
Yeah. As soon as you see interest rates drop, you see buyers come out of the woodwork. Everybody wants to buy a house. So yeah, if you can do it now, and I think there's a way, if you have the right team in place, the right real estate agent to be honest with you, and the right lender to help you figure out that financial aspect, you can be a homeowner.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think, like you said, having a good lender is a crucial part of that process as well, because there's ways to game the system. There's ways to refinance after a little, and at least you have the house you've wanted now, and you weren't bidding against 10 people like during COVID when the interest rates did drop. So
and there are negotiations that are still able to happen. It's not, we're not in 2020 by any means. There are still, repairs are still being negotiated, and there's still wiggle room in buying a house right now, but just for January 28th, it's busier than I've ever experienced.
Absolutely. Have you noticed a big shift in personal business with the buyer agents agreement?
For me, it has not been
much different.
I've got to ask the question of if the seller's going to pay a buyer agent commission, but I really have not been turned off by any of the changes. And I think that things are just businesses rolling as usual.
I agree. I've noticed there's not that much of a shift. I heard an agent the other day said someone walked into a house to try to get a showing and hadn't signed a buyer agent agreement with any agent. They were like, hey, you have to sign one of these now to see a house. But he said that was the weirdest thing that's happened so far. And the guy was like, okay, I'll sign it. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so no one's really putting up a fuss about it. So it's been very interesting.
I'm getting used to it now. So
yeah, I think it was the scary idea of it happening more than the actual effect it had. So, well, thank you, Abby, for sitting down with us, answering some questions. We'll put your info below too for anyone who is watching. We appreciate the professional answers, and we look forward to seeing your business continue to grow over the next 4 years.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so we had a great talk with Abby Hill about first-time home buyers, what they need to be looking for. But what's really important about real estate, and Collier and Associates really understands this, is it's all perspective. And one person's experience with an agent might be completely different than another. And one person's need from an agent might be completely different from another. So we wanted to also sit down with Brooke Hurst, another amazing agent who works with a lot of first-time home buyers, has a ton of experience, and get her opinion on some of the same things to see how they're very similar, but can also have a little bit of a different approach from other agents, because that is very important for as a first-time home buyer to understand that there is some variety. I feel like there is some differences between agents, but it's not always bad. It's more like what fits your needs. So, Brooke, if you would like to introduce yourself, how long you've been in real estate, how long you've been in the area, etc.
Yeah, so my name is Brooke Hurst. I've been in real estate for almost 5 years now, and I've been in the area, I guess since 2006, so it's been a little bit.
It has been a while.
But yeah, so.
You've got to see the area really change into what it is, haven't you?
It is so different. I mean, honestly, if you even leave for a year and then come back, it's different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, this area is changing like nothing I've ever seen.
Oh, I know. I earlier this week went and listened to the superintendent of Fayetteville speak, and he was showing us all the new junior high schools that they're going to be building, and They're amazing. They're not the high schools I went to. Ours looked more like a dungeon, but
The school systems here have amazed me probably more than anything. I mean, I drove past, I think, Thaden School or something in Bentonville.
oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It's like, imagine going to school here.
I
You set the
know.
bar like up here, the U of A, or I mean,
Yeah. You know, Fayetteville is going to be using the same architect that built Thaden to build one of their schools. I don't remember which one, but they're using the same architect.
Oh, wow.
I'm expecting big things.
oh, I bet it'll be amazing. So, all right, so you have plenty of experience in this area specifically. Okay, so getting into kind of our questions that we wanted to ask you. So, what is the biggest challenge that you typically see first-time homebuyers experience on more of a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just going back to the financial aspect again, getting their finances in order and figuring out how they're going to afford a home. Now, I will say you're going to be paying a monthly payment one way or another. You're either going to be paying that in rent or to your mortgage. And so a lot of people are turned off initially because they're not thinking about the fact that they'll be paying money either way.
Agreed.
But even, especially in today's market, sometimes, you know, paying a mortgage can be more than rent. So that is a hurdle for them to overcome.
I completely agree. And honestly, I love how you laid that out, because that's what personally went into my decision to buy a home. Was I was tired of paying $1,800 a month towards rent when I could pay $2,000, $2,500 a month towards a mortgage that I knew that value was. It was almost like throwing in a savings account.
Exactly. That's what I like to, that's how I like to frame it for my clients. Your home is kind of like a giant savings account, because yes, you are paying a mortgage that includes a lot of interest.
Yeah.
But you know, some of that payment is going towards your principal loan amount. And then, the other part of that savings account is the equity that you're building from living there. And certain markets are better than others, but I mean, Northwest Arkansas, you're going 9 times out of 10, you're going to see your equity grow every single year.
I agree. Yeah, I think the appreciation alone of our housing market offsets interest so much that people don't need to look as scared at the interest amount. Because if you put a percentage on the appreciation in Northwest Arkansas, it'd be probably pretty close to our interest rate.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really good way to look at it. So how do you feel like you guide clients that feel more overwhelmed about their finances?
Yeah. So, whenever a client comes to me, I like to have them sit down with me and do a buyer consultation first. And that way I can get to know like what they need specifically, because everybody is different. Everybody has different circumstances. And so what works for one person is not always going to work for someone else. And so I like to kind of get the lay of the land with where they're at. And then either if I think they're pretty close to being ready to buy a home, I would suggest that they go to a lender. And I have several lenders that I like to recommend. So depending on kind of what they're wanting, I'll recommend a few lenders and have them go to them. And then, you know, there are some clients who they need a little bit more help figuring out their budget and stuff like that. So I actually like to recommend my clients go to Freedom 51. They are this really great nonprofit organization based in Northwest Arkansas, and they are committed to helping people figure out their finances and
awesome.
set a budget that helps them reach their goals.
That's really cool.
So,
I've not heard about that one. That is a super cool proposition for people to go, because I will say you can make it work if you're smart with it.
you can.
And so I think the down payment can be daunting for people. I think people have no clue what home insurance is even going to look like. I didn't even know where to start there.
Yeah.
But I think having an agent helps answer all those questions really well.
Yes, for sure.
Well, so what would you say is advice you'd give for someone who wanted to start the process? Like where would you say, hey, please start here?
I would say please reach out to your realtor. And if you don't have a trusted realtor, ask people for someone that they have used who has done a good job, and, sit down with them and talk to them about what you're wanting, and then let them guide you from there. What you don't want to do is, wait until you really need to move immediately and decide to, go and call your agent that does not know that they're your agent yet until you call them and say that you want to see a house the next day, just because.
Absolutely.
Especially since all of the litigation that happened last year, we really need to have at least a couple of conversations first.
I agree.
Before.
Well, and I think that's good, because I see a lot of people who try to do a portion of this on their own and then bring in an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're losing value. You're paying the agent no matter what. You're paying them the same amount no matter what. So the honest truth is, why not from the beginning let them help you through the whole process? It makes their life easier too.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a really good point. What should a first-time home buyer do with the pre-approval stuff? We've talked about it. We've talked about it with Abby. Let's say someone wanted to bring their own lender in, but they want to use you as an agent. Do you guys work with other lenders outside of y'all's sphere?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the way that I have met some of my top lenders are because my buyers came to me already wanting to work with that lender, and they did a phenomenal job. So I would say probably about half of my transactions are with lenders that I did not know before.
Perfect.
So I'm very open to it.
So a big thing that I was trying to ask Abby earlier, and then I'll ask you, was, so Zillow has become a huge part in people's workflow for finding a home. I know people that just search Zillow for fun now, which can obviously lead down a deep hole of buying a house. But what would you say? How do people best implement Zillow without, following a Zestimate and getting your heart broken when the house isn't actually worth 180,
Yeah. So I would say Zillow can be a very helpful tool. I think it is a tool that people should be using, just because it does open you up to what all is on the MLS, because everything that's on the MLS goes to Zillow. And then they also have for sale by owners. And a lot of people think that you can't use an agent when you buy a for sale by owner home, and that is not true. I've actually found multiple for sale by owner homes for my clients.
That's what I bought. I bought a for sale by owner.
Yeah. And sometimes that's where the best deals are, because
100%.
the owners don't know what their house is worth, and they underprice it. So.
Oh, I agree. Well, I mean, like, for example, I've told this story, but never like the breakout version of, we had a for sale by owner home. The guy didn't know what his house was worth whatsoever. It was way overpriced. But then he realized that after it set without any showings. So we ended up talking him down like 60 or 75,000 with no gap appraisal.
Nice.
And so we got a great deal on it. And I couldn't help but learn a lesson of, if he would have had an agent, he would have probably cleared 20 or 30,000 more that we would have happily paid. So it's a weird deal where there's a trade-off there.
Yeah, there is a trade-off. Now I will say the Zestimates, they are hit or miss, because Zillow uses an algorithm for those Zestimates, and sometimes that algorithm can be like very close. I feel like, especially in newer build communities, things where, neighborhoods where things haven't changed that much and there are a lot of comparable sales, those estimates are a little bit closer. But there are so many homes that don't fall into that box, and those estimates can be all over the place because they don't know what has been done to the interior of the home since it was last sold. They don't know what is going on around, if there's like a big development going on nearby that's about to really increase home values. They don't know about that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you lose a lot by not having an actual agent help you.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier with Abby after the first half of this podcast, and we were saying how there have been transactions that are literally double the zest. I mean, where they had no clue that what is the Arkansas Greenway? Who cares that it's right behind that? You know, like there's stuff that they cannot factor in. They don't understand the value because, like you said, it's just an algorithm. All right. So last question for you. What would you tell someone who maybe they're not using you, maybe they are, but they're just a first-time buyer looking through this pool of 200 Collier agents, 200 plus? What would you say to them that they are going to get no matter what?
No matter what, they're going to get an agent who puts them above their own paycheck, which a lot of agents don't do that. And so I would say they're putting their clients before their own paychecks and really looking to serve and go the extra mile.
Yeah, so. I agree. I also think the cool thing that I see you guys doing all the time is really helping each other with like these round tables you guys do and stuff like that. So a lot of you are equally equipped in things. And so it's really cool to see that the level of service across the board at Collier and Associates is really consistent. I was telling my buddy, I don't really know. You could just go on their website and just point at one. Like, I can't pick a favorite. Like, just pick one. You'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming on here, giving some tips for first-time home buyers. We're going to keep diving into this series a little more.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.